So our third and final talk of this practicum will be delivered by Brad Martin. Brad is the Senior Director of Commercialization Programs at MTRAC, which stands for the Michigan Translational Research and Commercialization Hub. So Brad got his PhD in physiology here at U of M, and he's really spent his career transitioning therapies from product all the way through preclinical development and into clinical trials. He had a long career as director of product development at Astrum Biosciences, and Astrum, for those of you who don't know, is one of the first regenerative medicine spinouts from U of M Technology. It stands for Ann Arbor stromal cells. He's also been at Osiris and was a principal scientist at Pfizer. So he has a long career of transitioning therapies into humans, and he's worked very closely with us as part of the Fast Forward Medical Initiative, which is really a broader, less doc-specific feature of U of M, but we have a lot of synergy and a lot of common interest in taking technologies and pushing them forward, both into the clinic and into commercialization. So pleased that Brad could join us today and talk a little bit about funding mechanisms for medical innovation.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Dave. And I also appreciate the invitation to be here today. This has been a lot of fun for me. As Dave mentioned, in my previous life, I spent some time in the regenerative medicine space. I spent a good portion of my career using adult marrow-derived mesenchymal stem cells for cardiac repair. And so I understand just enough here to be dangerous, but as an interesting sidebar to the regulatory discussion. So we were developing a human-specific cell product. So when we went to the FDA, we had a bit of a problem with our efficacy data package because we did most of our work in an athymic rat model. But beyond that, you couldn't really do a pig model, which was the cardiac model of choice, because you couldn't really immunosuppress the pigs. So we either had to develop a pig-specific analog of our product, which wasn't the same, or we had to immunosuppress pigs, which wasn't the same. And so we ended up going to the FDA and actually negotiated with them. They were very willing to work with us on just going ahead with our efficacy package in athymic rats. And so they are flexible, especially in the cell and gene therapy space and the biologic space. So that's a little bit of my regenerative medicine background. But what I'm doing here now, so about five years ago, I came back to the university after a long career in the private sector. I joined a group called Fast Forward Medical Innovation. So what Fast Forward Medical Innovation is all about is we are a unit of the medical school in the Office of Research here at Michigan, and we help faculty with all aspects of moving their early stage research and tech development and bring it to the point of FDA trials and eventually clinical approval. So I think someone brought up the point about trying to connect the dots between all the stakeholders on campus. That's what our office tries to do, is help to connect the dots. And so what I'd like to do for the next 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, is just talk a little bit about the resources and the funding that's available and what's required to bring a technology from a promising benchtop finding, such as what we heard about today, to the point of actually impacting patient care. And this group here is acutely aware of what translational research is all about and how important it is, and so I don't need to belabor that point. And so, of course, if you're trying to bring your technologies to the patient, you have the proverbial valley of death. And valley of death is a little bit different for everybody that has this slide. Most people have slides like this. But the valley of death really refers to that concept of ideas that are coming out of the university not quite being ready to be acquired by those that are willing to invest and write a check for technology. There's a gap that exists between the data packages are typically able to generate using R01 funding or translational funding like this, and what a investment community member or even a strategic partner wants to see. And unfortunately, this valley of death is getting wider and wider and wider. As NIH funding becomes more difficult to obtain, And as the investment community becomes more and more risk adverse, and they are becoming more and more risk adverse, it becomes more difficult to really bridge this gap. And so again, Fast Forward is really designed to bridge this gap for our faculty members. And a lot of the slides I'll talk about today are going to be branded Michigan. I'm going to try to make it as general as possible. There are resources, I'm sure, at your institutions. I know that Pittsburgh has a lot, and Andrew's going to talk a little bit about that later on, but there are a lot of resources available that you need to take advantage of at your institutions. And also, if you have any questions, let's not be formal. Let's have questions right away, and we can hurry up and get done and get you back out in the cold. But if we look at this valley of death a little bit more detail, there are a number of things that can and will go wrong to trip you up. I mean, the most obvious is the scientific risk. But that's usually the one that faculty inventors such as yourselves have got the best handle on. You understand the technology better than anything else. What oftentimes gets you is that there is a funding risk, as we've heard about today. There's a regulatory risk. There's an intellectual property risk and a market risk. And one more that I'll add to this, that's not on this slide, is the team risk. I've seen a number of great technologies that fail because they have a poor team, a CEO that isn't able to really lead them, so therefore they can't attract funding. It's a vicious circle. But a failure in any one of these can cause the bridge to come down, obviously. And so as you begin to work on your discoveries, you need to, again, I think it's been brought up a couple times, have an eye towards the goal, have an eye towards the final product so that you can begin to assess some of these risks. And our office is really set up to really help you address these risks. We're not going to give you all the answers, but we're going to help you give you the tools to go out and assess these risks on your own and mitigate them to some degree. Because when you go and talk to an investor, they're going to want to have some confidence you understand what these risks are. They don't want to just hear about the science. They want to understand that you have really addressed each of these things and done what you can to mitigate them. Okay? So things that you can do to mitigate risks in translational research is to do confirm your efficacy in large animal models when it's appropriate, when you're able to. Demonstrate safety and toxicology. Do first-in-man data whenever it's appropriate. These are the kind of things that are going to give people safety. But also PK/PD, ADME, bioavailability. This is the non-sexy work that's not going to get you any publications, but it's going to be very important for an investor if they're going to write a check for a therapeutic or a device. Have a firm understanding of the market and a clear business model. Scale up manufacturing problems. CMC becomes a real problem for biologics and cell therapies. That could be a rate limiting step or even a deal killer right now. Because I've got the microphone down here, down on. And also freedom to operate intellectual property. So we do everything we can to help faculty members mitigate those risks. And so Fast Forward really has four main strategies: education, business development, funding and mentorship, and we're also scaling these teachings and make this an innovation hub statewide. So all of our efforts fall into these four main buckets. And the reason that Fast Forward was stood up about 6 years ago was to address this issue here. If you think about the technology development coming out of your university as a funnel, historically, prior to Fast Forward being around, it was a fairly narrow funnel. There weren't a whole lot of ideas coming in the top, and that's because it took a certain investigator with a lot of drive and understanding of the system to take their technologies to the point of commercialization without the resources, without the funding that exists now. So hence, there weren't a whole lot of things that were disclosed. Those that were disclosed and tried to go through the funnel were not de-risked. They had a hard time finding funding. There was more of traditional sponsored research, and there was really very modest follow-on funding from industry. And so the problem is that the funnel was too narrow, and they didn't have the resources or the skills or the expertise to help bring their ideas to fruition. So Fast Forward is really meant to widen that funnel, so to speak, to take that analogy a step forward. Through educational programs, helping our faculty understand what this process is all about. Believe it or not, commercialization, probably outside of this room, is still sometimes a dirty word. You're selling out, you're working with industry, you're trying to make a buck. Really what you're trying to do is impact patient care. But if you're going to be able to do that, you've got to be able to broaden your technology outside the walls of your institution, and so somebody's going to have to commercialize it. But also through faculty outreach, pilot programs, industry interactions, as well as ideation sessions, we've created a number of tools for innovators to help them understand the process. We have demystified the commercialization process. We've made the connections with strategic investors to help understand what they want to see in a technology and a data package before they're going to be able to make an investment in your technology. So Fast Forward is really set up to widen this funnel and to help our faculty members, innovators, bring their technology to fruition. It is often a very complicated process. As someone mentioned before, one of the real challenges is connecting the dots at your university. We try to provide some customer service to our faculty. We want to be a front door. We may not know where all of the bodies are buried, so to speak, but we can figure out who you need to talk to understand where the resources are. And so again, our resources fall into three main buckets. A business development function, a funding source is what usually gets people attention, and also educational programs. And I'll talk a little bit about each of these now. I think far and away the most important thing that we've initiated at Fast Forward is our educational programs. Helping our faculty members understand what this process is about has changed the culture. We now have promotion and tenure guidelines that incorporate innovation milestones, innovation data packages. So it's worth their effort now. They understand what's involved. And so we have a number of educational programs that are sort of coined under the acronym of PACE, Programs Accelerating Commercialization Education. And what we do is we have our faculty, our postdocs, our trainees, our students really do some needs assessment. We put them through design thinking, customer discovery. Customer discovery, I can't stress enough how important that is. They think they understand what the market wants or what the industry partner wants or VC wants. But we force them to go out and talk to the customer and understand through a customer discovery process what's important to them. You may be aware of the NIH I-Core model. This is somewhat similar to that. We've sort of boiled down the really important pieces of therapeutics and design thinking and device discovery for our course. We have a variety of programs. They are from short 1-hour CME lecture series to kind of our flagship course, which we call Fast Pace. This is project-based. I should mention this is open to anyone. Any institution in the country can come free of charge and take this 4-week course, which is really project-based, and it forces them to take a deep dive into all aspects of commercializing your technology. Steve's been through the course. What do you need to do to get to the next milestone, the next inflection point? What's going to be of value? What's a waste of time? And then we also have deeper dives as well. And these run the gamut from didactic lectures, panels, and they're all very, very interactive. We also have a business development function. We have 4 people on our team that are business development professionals. They are the gateway between our faculty and the private sector. Oftentimes, you may be going out to a national meeting or a regenerative medicine meeting. You give a platform presentation, and afterwards, if your data is compelling enough, you're going to be bombarded with industry folks giving you their cards saying, we want to work with you. Oftentimes, the junior faculty may not know how to interact with these individuals or negotiate these interactions. We can help make those connections for them. And on the other hand, sometimes we'll be approached by industry and they'll say, we want to see your 6 or 7 best and brightest oncologists, regenerative medicine scientists. We can set up those partnerships as well. And again, what makes this very important is that having a conversation with Medtronic or AbbVie, even if they don't sign up today to be your partner, you can ask them very pointed questions about, well, why not? Or what if I had this piece of data? So they're very able to say, this is what I would be willing to pay for it if you had these particular milestones. Having that interaction with the companies can be very beneficial in guiding the direction of a technology during its translational phase. And then the group that I run is something we call the Funding and Mentorship Program. This is a variety of funding sources that we have put in place, translational funding sources to help faculty, again, negotiate that valley of death. They've had NIH money, they've had R01s, but they're not yet ready for VC or angel funding. Where are you going to go to do that non-sexy PK/PD study or the early toxicology study? You can come to our shop and apply for these translational funds that are very similar to the funding you've received here. We've got some specialty funds that have been set up, and I'm sure that your institutions do as well if you're not from Michigan. These are funds that have often been made available through a philanthropic donation, a grateful patient, for example. We had a patient who made a donation because of a traumatic brain injury that a family member had. So they set up a traumatic brain injury fund to guide specific research in a particular area. The GI fund, a sleep fund, our regenerative medicine fund. So very much along the lines of what we're doing here today. If you get through that initial translational work with one of our early stage startup funds, our first true proof of concept fund is something we call Kickstart. And I'll mention that both Kickstart as well as the next bucket of money here called MTRAC are made available because of a gift or a grant from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. So this is the state of Michigan's economic group wanting to see economic impact in the state of Michigan. They want to see us move away from a simply automotive economic base here in the state. They want to see companies, they want to see job creation and follow-on funding. Those are the metrics that I have to report to the state of Michigan for their grant. This is a $4 million per year program, so it's serious money. And to do that, we've got two funding streams. One for kind of a proof of concept, $50,000 for a single milestone, a go, no go criteria. Does this project, I think I'm so excited about, have any real actual value in a commercial sense? That's what this money is for. It's very quick turnaround. You're never more than 3 months away from a funding opportunity. We do it 4 times a year. And this money is typically used for a first prototype or a scalable manufacturable prototype. PK/PD work, doing a high throughput screen to find a drug candidate if you don't already have one lined up, or a wireframe of an IT project. And I should mention too that we look at all 4, in our world we have all 4 verticals: drugs, devices, diagnostics, as well as healthcare IT. And probably healthcare IT is our fastest growing sector right now. So this is a 1 year of funding, again for $50,000, and it's really for a single milestone to give you a go, no go decision. If it looks good, you can apply for MTRAC funding. And this is a statewide program. So we administer the state of Michigan's money on their behalf for translational research in the life sciences, but it's open to anyone in the state of Michigan. So any university in the state, any health system, Spectrum Health, Beaumont, Henry Ford, can apply for the state funding. So this is sort of a one-stop shop for a venture capitalist or industry partner to see what are the best life science technologies coming out of the state of Michigan. And this is co-led by our office in Tech Transfer. It's for projects with high commercial success, and we want them to be fairly late stage by academic standards. And so by late stage, I mean 12 to 24 months away from being able to exit the university. This is not, we sometimes ask in the application process, what's your plan for follow-on funding after the MTRAC award? And sometimes people will say, well, I'm gonna go get an R01. That's not appropriate. They should have already had those R01s, gone through that entire process. Now they're really looking at, I am very close to being ready to be commercializable. How do I get there? And how they get there is with, again, these awards are on the order of $250,000, depending upon what they need. And what they need is determined by our oversight committee. Can I not advance the slide? There we go. This is the secret sauce that makes this program work, is having an oversight committee. So our oversight committee is the group that selects the awards and mentors the projects going forward, and oftentimes acts as a contact for business contacts down the road. These are 21 individuals that are served on our oversight committee, and they run the gamut from industry experts at Janssen, Genzyme, Terumo. An awful lot of venture capitalists sit on our oversight committee, as well as intellectual property folks, IP attorneys, regulatory assessment experts. So these are the kinds of folks that are going to be able to they're going to be the first people to write a check for a technology when it leaves the university. So they're in a very unique position to say, this has value right now, or this has value if you did X, Y, and Z, or Janssen would have no interest in this technology at all because we've been burned here many times in the past. Having that kind of industry knowledge and investor expertise is really helpful. And they stay with the projects throughout the year of funding and really change the course of how these projects move forward. And lastly, again, so if they are successful in navigating the MTRAC project, I should mention that the MTRAC year of funding, we run it very much like a startup within the university. We have quarterly meetings, they have milestones, they have to come and talk to the oversight committee meeting on a quarterly basis. We kind of hold their feet to the fire much more than they were used to with getting money from NIH. So we kind of gear them up for this process because as soon as they graduate, they're going to have to go out and raise their own money. Now, luckily, we've been able to set up a seed fund for them to sort of be, I want to say it's easy money, but it's certainly easier than trying to get an angel investment or a venture capital investment. This, again, was made possible by a philanthropic donation to the university. I think probably most of our universities have got development groups. Development groups are finding that they're very successful in attracting donations to set up funds like this. as opposed to putting your name on a building. We're finding that wealthy individuals want to see their money put to work. They want to do some good for the general university as well as for patients that are in need. And so we set up the Monroe Brown Seed Fund. This is currently a $3 million fund. We're just about to close on our second round for the Monroe Brown Seed Fund. And this is only for startups that come out of based on Michigan IP. I know that Pittsburgh has a similar startup fund as well, so it's a way to sort of support your own intellectual property and your own startups, get them off on a strong footing. And again, there's also mentorship as well as some coaching here to try to get them to the next round of angel funding or Series A. So again, this is my last slide here, but I just want to show that there are a number of resources here at Michigan. We're blessed to have a very dynamic group of investigators and a lot of resources here at Michigan as well. It's probably much too complex for all of the faculty to understand and navigate this road. We really strive to sort of be that roadmap, that navigator, if you will, to get them to the point where they can move from an idea, an NIH-funded idea, to the point of commercialization. And with that, again, this is very specific to Michigan, and so I didn't want to. This is going to be. I'm not going to turn it over real quickly to Andrew Brown from Pittsburgh, who's going to talk a little bit about the resources that are available at Pittsburgh. And so, in addition to Michigan and Pittsburgh, I'm sure there are resources at your own institutions, and if not, perhaps you could tap into the Michigan resources, certainly the educational resources.
Thanks, Brad. So rather than try and walk through all of these different resources that are available to investigators in Pittsburgh, I think I'll just say that it's really similar to what they have at Michigan and what they have at your other universities, which is different resources that come with financial resources, that come with mentorship, that come with access to discounted prototyping. And I think all of the other universities that have funded projects through the Resource Center likely have these same resources available to them. I guess the two things I'll mention are that it's really never too early to start talking to those partners that you might have after you exit the university. So particularly in Pittsburgh, groups like the Pittsburgh Life Sciences Greenhouse, LifeX, which is a seed stage and venture fund affiliated with the university, and Innovation Works are very plugged in to commercial translation funding opportunities and programs at the university, giving them not only a first look on technologies that they might invest in, but giving investigators at the university the opportunity to seek advice on when is the right time to spin out a company, who are the right investors to go after. So it's never too early to start looking at those local investment groups that might be investing in your startup. And the final point I'll make is don't try to learn all of these resources that are available to you at your campus. Find those people that can help you navigate these, tell you whether you are ready to chase after funding from the Center for Medical Innovation, or whether your technology is so far advanced that another $10,000 in funding is not going to get you anywhere and just bog you down in another application. So find folks like Fast Forward Medical Innovation, talk to your licensing manager, talk to a mentor in residence at your university to help you create that roadmap that's customized for your technology and figure out where you're best suited to spend your time seeking more funding or more commercial translation advice.
You ever take any questions or comments?
For both Kickstart and M-Track, can you expand a little bit more on that 50% cost sharing requirement?
Yeah, that's something that's required by the state of Michigan in the contract. And so if you're going to be applying for a $100,000 M-Track award, half of that will come from the state of Michigan and half of it has to be derived from whatever source the investigator can, but they need to bring a cost share of their own. Oftentimes they're going to their department chair for some discretionary money. Some schools have foundations that have got seed fund, we've got buckets of money for cost shares, but there is a cost share requirement for our program. No, it cannot be in kind. It has to be a real cash match that we can audit and verify that that money was spent towards the project. Sure. Yeah. If you can get the program director for your R01 to say that this project is complementary and contiguous with your R01 work, that's fine. Yep, we've done it that way a couple times.
Yeah, Brad, I do owe you a plug because you were so
I know.
helpful. And I just wanted to say we took the FFMI course, and I'd been through commercialization before, but this was an eye opener. And you forced us to do 40 customer discovery interviews. You said, what? That was a lot of work, and it was fantastic. We learned so much from that, and the way the course was organized, much more efficient and effective than the I-Core program. So thank you very much. It was an invaluable experience for us. That's how we found a lot of our early adopters, consultants, and et cetera. So it was a great experience for us.
If I could identify one single failure mode I think I see most often, it's that people are so in a rush to form companies too early. They've deluded themselves or they've overinflated the value of the technology in their own mind. If they're doing customer discovery interviews, they understand a little bit more reality. What's the lay of the land and what do people want to see?
Yeah, thank you. Fast Forward has a lot of wonderful programs and resources. Can you help dissect some of the proportion of your effort from your group with respect to business development engaging, say, industry-sponsored research agreements with projects at Michigan versus, say, licensing options and new company formation? Can you help to characterize some of the differences in focus?
So we are a unit of the medical school, and so our business development office is helping faculty with those relationships with industry. And that's both taking the shape of sponsored research, and more lately we're seeing co-development work. That's how we're interacting with industry. Licensing, startup companies, that's the realm of the tech transfer office. We work very closely with the tech transfer office, and if we do our job correctly, we're going to give them better assets to license or to build companies around. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, thank you. So to clarify, your group specifically focuses on industry-sponsored research agreements or other non-say licensing or putative technology transfer functions.
Correct. We are looking to develop the technology through whatever means possible, whether it's MTRAC funding, educational programs, or BD activities. We're trying to develop the technology to the point where it does make sense to form a company, if it makes sense to form a company, and the tech transfer will take care of that. Okay. Thank you very much.